Good evening, ladies. It's such a pleasure to be here tonight, and lots of business women that I don't know, and I don't think we're connected. So I think it's always a great opportunity to meet more women in business. My name is Paula Kensington, and I guess by trade, I'm a finance girl. I've worked in corporate Australia. I'm from the UK originally, and I've been CFO for the last 15 years in various different companies, ASX listed, international globals, and private companies as well. And it was always been my dream after I reached the echelons of CFO to be the CEO, but it was really hard for me to find the CEO position. So I decided to leave corporate life and start up my own business. And so now I can call myself anything, but I do call myself the CEO. So tonight is really about sharing with you the fundamentals, and it doesn't matter the size of the business. It doesn't really matter the maturity of the business. The challenges are the same. As I say to lots of people, whether you're a small startup or whether you're AMP, cash flow is important. It's just bigger numbers and lots more zeros, but it's the same challenge. So it's been a huge year, right? 2020 certainly isn't turning out to be the year that I'd expected it to be, and I'm sure that's the same for the rest of us. And August itself has been a big month. We've already had a full moon. The sun is in Leo, which is always quite strong anyway. And on Saturday was the 8th of the 8th, and that's apparently a gateway to new opportunities. So that often means we've got to say goodbye to a piece of ourselves or our business to allow for that new opportunity to come forward. But when I was getting prepared for my final preparations today for tonight, I realized that today is also an auspicious day because it adds up to 2020. If you look at 12 plus 8 plus 20, it's 2020.
Gosh.
So I don't know what that means, but let's see whether there's some insights to be shared. Oh, hang on, technology is letting me down now. No, it doesn't want to play. All right, let's see how we go. So the challenge often is also an opportunity, and we've decided to set up our own businesses, and we jumped right in with little or not enough planning, or perhaps even deep understanding as to what was in store for us. It was probably a good thing that we didn't really know what was coming, because as we all know, I'm sure the journey isn't easy, and certainly with hindsight, we might not have chosen to jump if we knew what we know now. But we have jumped in, and I think now that we are in owner businesses, we need to continually move forward. It's never set and forget. It's about a business life cycle, and it's about ideation and creation, launch, review, consolidate, maturity, and rebirth, and so it goes. So it's a bit like Mother Nature. I don't know if you like to go out for a walk, but I do. I'm in the inner west, and I love walking around the Cooks River. And I was just thinking about the business life cycles, and I was looking as I was going about in nature what happens, and often we find that there's 4 different stages on the same bush. You know, there might be, like with the camellia, there might be a bud, there might be a flower that's a different color in the new flower versus the old flower, and so on. So I think about our businesses like nature life cycle around that whole continuing to move. So tonight I want to talk with you about creating the measures that matter and the moments that matter in our business. Now, I have 13 fundamentals, and I'm not going to talk to you about all 13, but they're certainly available if you want to know more. But we're going to take you through the 3 that I think are really important, the 3 of the 13. So after my 15-year career as a CFO, I think in some ways I've had more learnings in the last 2 years of being on my own than I have in the last 10 years being in big business. Buying a business as well as launching a totally new business at the same time probably wasn't one of my smartest moves. And with no teams, I've realized that I've got little accountability other than to myself. I've got very little rewards, or at least what they looked like before with a salary. And so that's really hard to keep that momentum going when you don't see a lot of return for your time. So, you know, I know that I don't take the easy route in life, and it's certainly the same in my business. So we will look at the measures that matter and the moments that matter, and I will share with you some real tangible pieces of work that I use in my business today, so that we can really help to give you some insights, hopefully, so you can go away tonight with something to do. So the measures that matter. This is likely to be your primary source of earning money, right? And the biggest challenge that we have as business owners is making sure that we calculate the correct return for our time and our expertise. So we can think about that from a bottom-up approach, or we can think about it as a top-down approach. We have to value our scarce resources, and those resources are our time. So the measures that matter, I think, in my business is really these 6 here that I've got. I think the first one that matters is the utilisation of resources. So if you have a team, then you need to think about what it is that they're doing and how utilised are they being. Most of all, have you got the right sort of skill set to do the right job? And I don't know the ladies that I've got on the call tonight, but there will be a balance between people that are on their own in their business and people that have got teams in their business. And I think the challenge is that often we're not being the CEO of our business because we're so busy doing all the other mundane stuff like ordering stationery or being the call center help desk or being chief logistics officer. But we're certainly, the last thing that we do is be the CEO of our business. Already before we started tonight, I heard a conversation with 2 of the ladies that are talking about SEO, marketing and websites. So that's a real tangible piece of work that we have to do in our business, but it's not being the CEO. So I think we have to get that balance between transactional nature of doing business versus the strategic sort of big picture thinking about where's our business going. So these are the 6 measures that I think matter. And they're on my dashboard and I look at these weekly, sometimes daily, and I certainly look at them monthly. So the utilisation of resources, I would suggest to you that at least 75% of your resources need to be utilised. And so you need to think about whether you're actually measuring that, because a lot of people I talk to just have a kind of gut feel and they're not really measuring the output and what people are actually busy doing, including ourselves, right? We have to include ourselves in that. How many times have we done a time motion study on the time that we spend and what we're doing? So the second measure that's really important is our working capital ratio. And so that really is the lifeblood around how much cash do we have and what's the length of time that cash is going to last us. So if we think about our assets and our liabilities, the general thinking is to have 2 times assets to liabilities, which would then put you in a nice comfortable position that says, I can afford to pay my bills as and when they fall due. But we all know that there's obviously times when I looked at my balance sheet this morning in preparation for this, that I've got a huge intercompany loan that it owes me money. So if you looked just purely at that, you would say that my business can't afford to pay its bills because it owes me as an investor into that business. But that aside, do your debtors, are they higher than your creditors? And then that makes you feel like, yes, I've got the ability to pay my obligations as they fall due. But also I'll take you through the burn rate of cash in a little while when we talk about cash flow. The third measure that matters is our percentage of costs to the percentage of revenue. Now, this is a really interesting one because if the costs are higher than 20% of your revenue, that could mean that you've got a very heavy cost base and you actually need to leverage and scale up your revenue. And if we're building for scale, often you need to build that cost base before you necessarily get that revenue. But I think as a rule of thumb, about 20%, and this is how big business works. We were doing this all the time. What is the cost of our support functions? So that's things like finance, HR, software to run the business, marketing to promote the business, office admin, rent, and even our salary as a CEO, we're an overhead of our business. So if you think about having a revenue of 100K, then your fixed cost should be about 20K a year if you've got a revenue of 100K a year. So that's kind of rule of thumb. The fourth measure is your financial reserves. And this is how much money have you got that's going to last you if the revenue just stopped. And I think this year has been a real testament to this. Businesses that I've worked in have got 6 to 12 months of surplus reserves to be able to pay their way if revenue finished tomorrow. And I think that's pretty standard. So you don't necessarily have to have it in your business per se, but you need to know that you can put your hands on 6 months of financial reserves to be able to pay your way if revenue suddenly dried up. You'll have to excuse my puppies this evening. They'll want to come and have a look. So hopefully they'll be nice and quiet. The fifth measure is your gross profit and your net profit. Now, I would say gross profit would be somewhere between 60 and 75% of revenue, and your net profit, hopefully somewhere around 20 to 25% as a net figure. I think that would indicate a pretty strong, healthy business. Again, it depends on where you are with your life cycle of whether you're investing or whether you're established. But I think that's quite a nice measure to think about, 75 gross and 25 net. And then the final one is something that perhaps you don't hear talked about all that often, is around the cost to acquire customers. So we know that to acquire a customer is about 5 to 25 times more expensive than to keep the customers that we've got. So it's really important to look at how much does it cost you in terms of marketing, in terms of branding, in terms of however you're out there winning customers, how much does that cost you versus how much revenue does that customer bring you? So the measure here is about 3 to 1. So if your customer is giving you $1,000, then really it should cost you a third of that to acquire them. So about $300 per thousand for a cost to revenue measure. So hopefully that makes sense. So thinking about the 3 fundamentals now, I'm just going to talk you through each one of those. And again, we'll go through some examples to hopefully bring them to life. The first measure, the fundamental, is really about utilization of assets. And I touched on that just now with the dashboard. But, you know, if you have a product and a service, then you've got a resource to make that product or make that service. So these are assets of our business, and they're very tangible. Assets can be tangible, which means you can touch them and feel them like a physical asset, and they can be intangible, so you can't really feel them, but you can get a sense of what they are. And this can be brand and IP and trademarks and things like that, but also goodwill as well. But if you think about your tangible assets, so these are people as well as physical assets. And again, what is the maximum utilization that you could potentially get out of yourself or your team, and how is that measuring up in terms of actual reporting? So if you've got, for example, 1,000 hours in your team, how many of those hours are actually being worked on, and how do you know what is being worked on, and how many of those hours are actually billable versus a cost to your business? So measures and reporting is what you can actually manage if you're measuring it. If you're not measuring it and you're going by gut feel, then you can get yourself into a bit dangerous water, because you might feel like everyone's busy, but what are they busy doing, and how much of that busyness is actually equating to revenue? So here's a couple of examples that I just wanted to get you thinking about. So assets and liabilities, thinking about investments. So on the left-hand side of this slide is a screenshot from Excel. It's a very simple but very relevant business case. And I would just get you to think about, do you do business cases for your new products or new business lines, or even, you know, have you got a business case that perhaps is the reason why you set up your business in the first place? Now, it's really important to think about new products and actually do a very simple business case about how many of these products are you going to sell, what's the sale price, what's going to be the cost of sales, what's going to be the overhead cost of those products, and what will be the profit. So if you look here, you can see in my real life example, I've got an online mentoring program that I've currently got 20 people on. And I was thinking to myself, well, what would it take for me to actually get that to 50? What would it take for me to get that to 100? And what would it take to get that to 1,000? And this is per month. So I come up with the sales price, which I know, and I come up with 50 mentees times that sales price. That gives me $12,000 for the month. And then I think about the costs that are actually involved with delivering that. So having mentors on my program, having it hosted, and then having support and management of that. That gets me a gross margin. And then I think about, well, what cost is it to me? What do I have to pay in terms of refreshing content? What do I have to pay in terms of a sales engine? What would I have to pay for a support team and things like that? So it's a very simple model, and I'm very happy to share it with anyone that's interested afterwards. That gives me a profit per month of $5,000. Okay, great. What's it going to cost me to build this? So just underneath that, you can see a little piece there around cost to define and develop an app or an online program. What is the cost to build that? What is the cost to test it? And then that assumes that my whole investment is 17,500, and that's going to be made like day zero, like whenever I decide that yes, I'm going ahead. So what then I think about is, what would be the outcome? What's the payback? How long is it going to take for me to get that money back? Because I can see that this would, in theory, be a good investment, because it's only going to cost me $17,500, and I'm going to get net profit of $5,000 a month. But if it takes me 6 months to build, and then it takes me another 30 days to sell something, assuming I can sell it to 50 people straight away, that's 10 months before I get my money back. But if I can get like the 50 people on it straight away, then it's only going to be the 6 months build. So hopefully that kind of illuminates the point. The worst case scenario is my scenario C at the bottom there, where it says it takes me 6 months to build, and then it's going to take me another 6 months to sell it. So that means I'm going to have to wait 15 months for my money back. But again, this looks like a good investment to make in my business. So I would suggest to you, start having a think. If I could wave a magic wand and give you an extra 5K, how would you spend it today? But if I gave you an extra 50K, how would you spend that? And then if I gave you 150K, how would you spend that? And then if I gave you $500,000, how would you spend that? And that just gets a bit of that blue sky thinking happening for you, because you think, right, okay, so if I had 150K, I know what I would do. I would hire a couple of people to come in and start helping do my social media that I spend all day Sunday doing for the month. They can come and help me do that, so that my time's better spent on delivery. So just, think about that. I would suggest as a bit of homework, think about how would you spend that 50K, 100K, 500K, because potentially by waiting, you could be costing your business, because now might be a good time. If you've got the spare cash to be able to invest, now might be a good time to build that app or build that service or think about that product that you have on your back burner. As you can see here, the business life cycle is a continuum. If we think about having that ideation, thinking about creating ideas and creating opportunities for business. Never before has this year shown us that we can't just set and forget. We have to make sure that we're always thinking on our feet, always trying to disrupt our thinking before we get disrupted. So launching products, always assessing them, always coming back and saying, well, how's it tracking? Can I make any adjustments? Do I need to invest and refresh content? What do I need to be thinking of? Do I need to take my products online? Do I need to buy some hardware to actually make this delivery a lot more professional? Things like that. So then thinking about the assets around what I said about people, thinking about brand, IP, your know-how, that's a huge investment in our small business today. Our small business brand is everything for us. Our following, our engagement, the way that we convert is everything. And I'd be really keen to hear what you've got to think about that. We'll go into that in a little while. So that was number one. That was about utilization. Number two, fundamental, and you can see I've called it 5 here because I've grabbed them from my 13. But number two, fundamental, is pipeline. So this is an essential part of the business engine. Think of this as a whole pipeline of oxygen. Without this, we don't have tomorrow. So how much effort do we spend on business development versus delivery versus admin versus website and everything else? So thinking about consistency, as I always say to people, no matter whether you're in business or whether you've got a career, your brand is everything. And it's only going to get more and more important as we become more and more digitized. So if you're going to jump in, you have to decide how you're going to do it. How are you going to be visible, and what is your frequency? So consistency is key. We can't just turn up 1 week and then go quiet for the next 3 weeks. If we're going to actually show up, we need to make sure that we know consistency is key. And I'll take you through a few interesting measures in a minute, which might be a bit scary. Thinking about your funnel, how big should it be? How many conversations do I need to have? How can I improve my engagement? All of these really important things. And who knew that a CFO knew anything about building pipelines, right? I think that's one of my biggest learnings in my business. So everyone loves a nice little vision, a nice little picture, no more so than me. So I put this one together. And this is all about the funnel and how you take people through that funnel. And I'm sorry if I'm teaching us to suck eggs here, but I just wanted to really refresh our thinking in terms of how do we measure and how do we take people through the top of the funnel all the way through to actually converting and then them becoming a client. Because we get so busy in the doing that we forget about the planning and the building. And so I've got a big whiteboard here in my home office that has all of these ways that I bring people into my funnel. So being aware obviously is about being seen, about being out there in the digital world, or maybe not, maybe in the physical world, but making sure people can see you, making sure people are aware of you. Then we go down the funnel, we talk about attracting. So now that people are aware of you, how do you attract them? How do you engage with your audience? Once they've kind of got engaged, how do they consume you? How do they get a little taste of who you are? So tonight, we've gone through those 3 steps. We're going through those 3 steps. I don't know most of you, I think, on this call. So now you're going to be aware of each other. You might be attracted to what I say. You might even want to have a little taste. You might even ask me for my 13 fundamentals. And so that's a nice little giveaway, a nice little taster. This is how I work. This is the kind of expertise that I have. So how do you want to taste that? But then, you know, it's not just the first thing. It's like, well, I like that. Now I want something more. So do you think about that buyer's journey? And I call it buyer's journey because they're not a client yet. This is how do you bring people along the journey of what you know, what is the problem you solve, why is it applicable to them, and make your audience feel like, well, yeah, she gets me. This is like the problem I have. Then you can go and talk about conversion. And then about buying as well. But some interesting stats here. So I have 2 businesses. I have a female, I bought a female networking business. And so I have a very well-established funnel and membership base and following over in my female only. So one of the ladies was talking about 2 businesses. So I'm similar. I have LBD, which is over here, and I have PK, which is over here. And LBD is all about women in business and careers, and PK is all about helping individuals and businesses become more successful and growing global communities. So I've got 2 very different businesses. And so I can see from what I've done in my career and as a business owner, some of these ratios really do play out. So some of you might know this one around the 10-10-10 rule. And what that says is that you might show up in social media 10 times and you have to say something 10 different ways. So you might have a theme about igniting careers or igniting businesses, but I have to talk about that in 10 different ways on 10 different platforms. And maybe, if I'm lucky, 10% of my audience actually sees it. So all that effort we go to and invest into social media and we think we're being really noisy, only 10% is actually seeing it. So they might be seeing it. Okay, great. How many people actually care about it? How many people are engaging with you? And I can see this in my community within the LBD that's got 10,000 followers, but only 30% engagement. And that's actually, I think, deemed to be quite good. But out of that 30% engagement, only 3% will buy from you. So you start looking at the numbers and you might have 10,000, but only really, 300 of that are actually, even interested. And then another 3% of that is actually maybe going to buy from you, maybe. So there's a lot of work for some little rewards, shall we say. So other measures there are the conversion. So be interested to hear you ladies to think about how successful your conversion is. But standard says 1 in 4 will convert. So if you do the maths backwards and you go, right, okay, well, I want 5 new clients in my business. That means I have to have 20 prospects, which means I need to have 75 conversations, which means I need to start with an audience, a newsletter database, a CRM of 300. And then you go, wow, that's for 5 clients. And then depending on the lifetime of that client, you might have to do that every quarter. So you can see why as a startup business that I'm in with my PK business, that's a lot of effort that we have to continually do. It's like the rabbit, the hamster wheel, like we're on it and we just have to keep running. And I have to be the CEO of my business, right? So the third measure that's really important is cash flow. And I'm sure this is not going to come as any surprise to anybody on this call. It's the lifeblood of your business. After the pipeline, they're probably oxygen and blood are like pretty much the same. You can't have one without the other. So thinking about cash flow, how do we actually start measuring and what's important and how do I think about it? Because lots of people don't like cash flow. Lots of people say to me that they're not sure about how to manage this. So I'll take it that you might feel the same. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But I wanted to show you here some of the spreadsheets that I run. And so I've never seen an automated app that can do this better than I can do it in Excel. And even when I was in big business, $50 mil businesses, we were still running weekly cash flows in Excel. So that may or may not surprise you. So two different things here. On the left, we've got the monthly forecast and a cash burn. And on the right, this is what I physically do. This is part of my cash flow. I'm sharing some pretty sensitive information here. And this is how I think about my business every month. So on the left, I've got the bank balance as at the end of July, and then I take my debtors and my creditors out of zero. I take out the BAS that I owe, I take out the soup. I don't have any wages now, I don't have any staff, but if you had wages, you would put them in 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you come down to a cash burn. So cash burn is either coming in, which is great, or it's going out, which is not so great. But if I've got $5,000 at the end of July and my cash burn is coming in, which is $5,000, I'm going to have $10,000 by the end of August. Now, thinking about how long is that going to last you, if you know that your monthly overheads, say, are $5,000, then potentially that's going to last you 2 months, 60 days until you get to zero, assuming that no other sales come in. So there's some really rudimentary schedules here, but they're just helpful. And on the right-hand side, I've got my weekly cash flow forecast. If you look down right at the bottom, I've got opening cash at bank of $1,400. And then each week I've got the net cash inflow, which is positive, or net cash outflow, which is negative, because you can't look at it just on a monthly basis. The weeks are so spiky that when you've got wages to pay certain weeks and you've got PAYG to pay and then you've got BAS to pay, you can't look at it on a monthly basis. You've got to look at it week by week. So you can see at the top, I've got aged debtors, client 1, 2, 3. Here's the money. This is when I think they're going to pay me, because you can't just assume you've got $10,000 owing and it's all going to come in at some point. Well, when's it going to come in? And then it gives you the chance to be able to phone them up and say, hey, this is $3,000 or $6,000 is due on week commencing the 10th of August. Have you got it lined up for payment? Like, actually get ahead of the client and say to their accounts department, is it scheduled for payment? Have you got everything you need? I mean, this is what big business do all the time. I was working in a manufacturing business earlier this year, and they would have invoices of $500,000. So you can imagine if that $500,000 didn't come in that week, they couldn't pay the payroll the following week. So it doesn't matter how big or small you are, the challenge is the same. So get ahead of your debtors. People don't like phoning up and chasing money, but you can actually phone them in advance and speak to their accounts department and just say, I'm just checking that you've got everything ready to go next week. So there's nothing particularly exciting here other than this is how I run my business. And if you don't already do it, then I would really suggest that you think about cash flow management, because even if this along the bottom here, this closing cash at bank, even if that had a negative, even if it looked like I was not going to have enough money this particular week, like I need to know that now, so I can make some changes to my cash flow. I wouldn't necessarily pay. I can make a decision not to pay my business credit card on time if I don't have the money to actually be able to do that until the following week. I'd rather pay the interest on that than obviously then take me over drawn. But it shows you here about planning. You can think about, how can I have a fallback situation? Should I talk to my bank about having an overdraft facility just there in case I need it? Or should I think about a business loan that's just there that I can draw down in chunks of $5,000 just in case I need it? So that this information really helps you make those decisions. And if you were to go and do that, then absolutely any lending institution would want to see monthly, weekly cash flow forecasts. So I know you've had a couple of questions beforehand, and I just wanted to share something else with you, which aren't necessarily fundamentals, but it's really about a checklist that I've been putting together for businesses. And I apologize that this is a bit small, but what I've done here, and I'm happy again to send this to you, is think about what you need in the first year of business, the second year of business, the third year, and the fourth year of business. So I think all of these checklist items are something that we should always be thinking about. And I've tried to allocate them into when I think if you're in your first 12 months versus the next 12 months. And it's always good, even if you've been in business 5 or 10 years, to come back and just reassess and just see where you are on this checklist, because some people start their business and they've got lots of clients and they just go straight into delivery. And so they don't then think about building their funnel or building their brand or building their social media. So you can come back and do this work, but this work's got to be done at some stage. So if you think about, let's take year 2, for example, that, you're sort of on your way, you've got a couple of clients, but are you creating consistent content and building strong followers across all the platforms that make sense to you? Have you thought about getting a VA or an EA to set up workflows and automation and templates so that you're not spending all your time doing the same things all the time? Have you got a CRM even, or are you just working in Excel? Have you got time management tools? Have you got scheduling tools and design tools, and various softwares that, are reasonably inexpensive and sometimes free, like Asana for project management, for example. You can get a lot of stuff for free. Are you managing your sales funnel, and have you got a buyer's journey? Do you know what your buyers go through when you're appearing on social media and coming down your funnel? Just maybe take a step back and actually see it with a set of fresh eyes that says, does this make sense anymore? I'm in so many people's funnels and I think, oh my God, this is like, I can feel that it's just automated. It doesn't even feel like it's very, it's not kind of a quality that I'd like my customers to feel like they were getting. Thinking about the problems that you solve. What is it? Has the problem changed that you used to solve? And a lot of that is true. So how do you change your model so that you can, be the problem solver for the new set of problems that your customer has? Do you have a financial plan by month? And is it loaded into Xero? Do you have projected revenue plans? Do you know what would happen if your revenue dropped by 10% or grew by 10%? Do you know what the next 3 years would look like if you wanted to 2x or 3x the size of your business now? But also, I think in year 2, and this is where I'm at, is consolidating my thinking. So a lot of the time we're building IP as we go, we're building the engine as we're flying, right? So then you can come back and go, actually now I know what my IP is, I know what I'm selling, and I've got a really good value proposition for my customer. So just thinking about consolidation of earlier thinking, and thinking about what you might give away. So my 13 fundamentals of business, as I said to you, very happy for you to go onto my website and download it, and I'll share a little offer with you as well at the end. Thinking about support networks, I think Small Business Women Australia is an awesome support network. Are there other professional bodies that you should be or could be a part of? Is there local government and chambers and information that you can get? And I actually wrote this before COVID happened around business grants, but even pre-COVID there's business grants. But thinking also about partnerships with third party and thinking about collaborators. I'm a big believer that competition will die out in the next 10 years, and you're better off actually collaborating rather than trying to compete against each other. So having these frenemies is my little term. So hopefully this has been useful, and have a look at this. I think there are different stages that we're at, and I think I'd really value your input to that. As I've said, there's fundamentals in my website, so pkadvisory.com.au. Download the 13 fundamentals. I will be able to see that, and I will put you into a draw for a complimentary CFO Eyes on Your Business call. Absolutely obligation free. I'll give you 30 minutes of my time, and I'm happy to jump in and help you with any problem that you're having, or just to have a sounding board on where you're at. So hopefully that's the end of my presentation. I'm happy to take questions. I'm sorry if I've rattled through that really quickly, But I'll stop sharing that now, and happy to answer questions if I can. And take a glass of water.
That was amazing. It was amazing, Paula.
There was a lot there. Sorry, I'm always guilty of over delivering.
No. I was just more like going, so much work to do.
I know. And this is the problem, right? It's like if you've ever moved dirt, if you've ever done any renovations and you've had to do a slab and you've had to get a digger in to move a small bit of dirt, it suddenly becomes 5 times the size that it was before. And this is the problem, right? But now's a good time to do it because we have got potentially more time. So we can actually unpack our business and think about it, because there's a lot of really strategic thinking that we just don't find time to do.
Yeah, definitely. I try and have Fridays for the, trying to work on work on the business on a Friday.
I was talking to another lady last week, and I said to her, imagine most of us have probably come from some kind of corporate career experience. Like, how many times do you see the CEO and the CFO together talking about strategy, what's happening in the business? They're doing it all the time, like every day. Like, I would be in the corner office with the CEO talking about what's happening, clients, relationships, so most of us as business owners are not having those conversations. We probably don't have anyone in our team that's finance related. We might have an accountant. They're probably the compliance accountant. They may not be the person that you can soundboard ideas with, business cases. Do you think I should do this, this, or this?
Yeah, definitely. And that's where it's, the community group is so good with Small Business Women Australia, because if anyone, needs any assistance or, needs that sounding board, please don't hesitate to pop those questions in.
And I did that on Friday. So I looked at the group and there was a question about social media, I think, and marketing. And I actually jumped on and emailed the lady that had answered somebody else's problem.
Yeah.
She's ended up giving me a quote. So I've just built this relationship out of that conversation.
Perfect. Excellent. That's what it's for. That's great. Okay. So Victoria's popped through a question. Can you please tell us again what gave you the impetus and drive to leave security of big business to your own?
I don't know. I must be my head tested.
Yeah.
I'm going to write a book.
What made you make that crazy decision?
I'm going to write a book that says From Hero to Zero and Back Again. It felt like I gave everything up for like next to nothing. I just fell off a cliff, like literally. You don't realize how secure you are until you leave and then go, oh, so hang on, I'm not getting any revenue and I'm working twice as hard and I've got no reward. But I have never been so happy as I am today. I am absolutely deep joy of what I do. I've just never been so skint in my life.
Yeah. So, and you say to yourself, whose idea was this again?
I know. But I wouldn't go back. I say to my friends, like, I'd rather like poke my eyeballs out with blunt pencils than go back. Like, I just want to help lots of people. And when you're in a business, you can only help that business.
True. Does that help, Victoria? I hope that helps answer your question.
Absolutely. And I absolutely hear what you're saying. And
are you in a similar situation?
Beg your pardon?
Are you in a similar situation?
Yes, but I'm going to mute myself now because I'm absolutely not qualified like your gorgeous speaker. So I'm going to mute myself and not be a person that's going to talk any further.
No, that's fine. Okay, I was just looking through the questions that were asked previously, and I think you've probably covered this one off in the checklist, but I'll just double check. The question from Stephanie: key targets for sole trader in setup less than 5 years old.
Yeah, so I think in that checklist, I think there's some real tactical pieces of information around making sure you've got a bank account that's separate to your personal account, making sure that you set up either Xero or something similar. you know, making sure that you've got the name and the logo and all of that kind of ASIC boring stuff. You know, it's just so much more professional from the get-go. And it might cost you, I don't know, it's probably going to cost $3,000 minimum, maybe up to $5,000, to actually get, you know, your business set up, potentially a website. But you know what, I didn't have a website for the first 12 months of my business, and it didn't matter. Like, people were doing business with me because they knew me. So just be careful about where you do spend your startup money, and unless you're selling online products, obviously you probably need a website by that stage, I'd say. But, you know, thinking about how much capital have you got to invest in your financial runway. And this I actually got wrong for myself. I gave myself 12 months capital where I could say, look, I'm just going to spend this money without getting 1 cent of revenue. And I thought I could do it in 6 months. I thought, how hard can it be, right? I can just grow a business, you know, it's only going to take me 6 months, but I had no sales experience. And so it took me longer. So think about that, because there's nothing worse than running out of money and you're only halfway in.
True.
So if that person that asked that question, then absolutely come onto my website and get the fundamentals, and ask. I'm happy to share this, because this will be an extra point on there. But there's lots of great giveaways I'm offering, but I think also 30 minutes of my time is probably something that's of greatest value at this stage.
Definitely. And Mariam, did you have a question at all?
Just checking if I'm muted. Okay. Well, I've been thinking of quite a lot of questions, but I am sort of saying I'll hold them until I really know what I'm saying. My first question, I've been in business for 15 years for myself.
Yeah.
I'm the managing director. Now you've been talking about CEO.
Mm-hmm.
Now I've been confused, which is better. I'm the sole trader. I don't have anyone with me.
Yeah.
It's very hard.
Yeah.
I have contractors. I'm a translating and business culture awareness or educator as well. Right. So I do contract people as translators.
Yeah. So
I am just wondering, for my kind of business, being a sole trader, is one better than the other, like CEO or?
No, I mean, Mariam, they're the same. The MD is the same as the CEO.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, it's just my language from corporate worlds. It's just the C-suite. It's known as the CEO. If you're thinking then about the difference between a sole trader versus a business or a registered PTY, yeah. I mean, the only difference there is it's the compliance cost, but it's also the safety that basically you protect yourself for the worst case, because it's a limited business. If someone was to sue the business is a separate entity to you, whereas today your business is you. So worst case, someone was to sue you because of malpractice, they would be suing you and the assets that you have. And that may or may not be of concern to you, which is totally fine. If, as in my business, I set up my business because if that happened to me, then myself and my assets are protected.
Okay.
And that's effectively the biggest thing. And it costs you $3,500 to set it all up.
That's just to set up the PTY.
Yeah. Asset cost. Yeah. You need an accountant to do it, unless I didn't do mine because I'm not interested in doing that. I'd rather pay someone to go and do that.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
And I think And I think, Paula, you're using the frame, the term CEO in terms of, are you being the CEO, meaning like, are you being strategic? Are you working on the strategy? That's what you're meaning.
Yeah. And so I talk to women in careers about, are you being the CEO of you? Are you actually strategizing about your career, or are you drifting and just waiting for opportunities?
Yeah. Okay.
All right, fantastic. Has anyone else got any other questions? No, I don't think we do. We'll probably think of them all later as well.
Well, Well, you can connect with me, honestly, and I'm happy to answer questions. But yeah, I'd really love to connect with you anyway, ladies. So please find me on LinkedIn, Facebook. I've got 3 brands. I've got PK, I've got CFO Conversations, and I've got LBD.
Lovely. I would like to connect with you at some stage, because I'm in the middle of being in the COVID now.
Yeah.
I'm in the middle of changing my ways, because my business used to be basically a face-to-face.
Yeah.
But now it's all becoming online, and I just need to think of other ways to be viable in this
well, it opens up new markets for you as well.
It does.
The opportunity that there's a whole world out there now that's quite ready to go online.
Exactly. It does. And I have a future project, but it's a thought right now.
Right. Well,
because of the online.
Yeah. So Mariam, just reach out and find me on LinkedIn. I'm not difficult. I'm the only Paula Kensington there. You're probably the only Mariam Elliott. I've taken a screenshot, so I'll have a
okay. Lovely. Thank you.
All right, fantastic. And again, just, please don't hesitate to pop a question in the group, in the community group, if you would like advice. There's over, I think it's probably now, it's over, about 2,000 businesswomen in the group now. So please don't hesitate to reach out. There'll definitely be somebody that will be able to help you with that. Well, again, Paula, thank you so much for your time tonight. That was fantastic. And we'll see you all at our next Skill Up webinar. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.